Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson. I have the beautiful Helen Sarnett with me. She is the founder and host of Sleepless Podcast, was a nonprofit fundraiser at the end of her rope, struggling with a long list of medical issues. Underlying all of it was the fact that she could no longer get herself to sleep. With Sleepless, she serves up bedtime dreams every episode by reciting a lulling list of similar items. And I just loved this concept so much. And I have listened to the podcast, and she has the most soothing, beautiful voice. So if you guys have sleep issues or anxiety or insomnia, look up and subscribe to the Sleep Lists podcast. Lately, she's more well rested, less on edge. She records voiceover work and speaks at events about her experience with resilience and the power of neuroplasty. Her hobbies are enjoying family time, cooking from scratch, which I love, and cozying up with a good book or movie. Welcome, Helen.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And what a beautiful introduction. Thank you for taking the time to prepare that. That was
Of,
lovely.
of course, it sums you up perfectly. I met Helen through a podcast meeting group, and I was so excited to have her on and just talk about her journey. Helen, tell us a little bit about your early years. We kind of travel this path, and I was speaking to you about it before, of the golden thread that kind of brings us forward in our life. There's kind of a trajectory, whether we realize it or not. So tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I grew up in Michigan, spent my first early years in the Detroit area. One of my favorite things and one of my first memories is being part of a Polish folk dancing troupe. And so I got to
Love
do
it.
a lot of dance. So my very early years had a lot of dance and performance and theater involved in them. That fell a little bit to the wayside. I mean, I did it all the way through college. I guess I did theater, but sometimes it was behind the scenes. I was a
Mm,
singer.
right.
Yeah, so I did a lot of performance-based stuff as my hobbies as a kid, and then I also loved reading. I liked connecting people. Like, I often got a lot of school comments like, "Helen's a real social butterfly. Helen doesn't have one specific group of friends. Helen is all over the place."
I
Um,
love that. So you are
yeah.
a connector. A lot of people,
Yeah.
that's kind of their role, is they connect people. And then how perfect that you landed in um, this nonprofit role. Was that something you've done your whole career, or was there a pivot at some point that got you interested in moving in that direction?
There was like when sometimes you're on a hike and like you're like, "Oh, what's over there on that path?" and you kind of go down a little ways and then you're like, "Oops, this was a deer trail. Let me head back towards the main path."
Yeah.
There was a little bit of that. So I have a undergraduate degree in international studies, and I thought I was going to work in global business. And I did love to travel. I learned French from a very early age. That was part of my schooling. I loved to travel. So I thought, international business, shipping, that'll be what I do. Um, and I did that for about a year, and I realized that for-profit work wasn't going to sit well with me. I was in a room in Copenhagen with like other up and coming leaders from across the entire company, and they started talking about the oil and gas division of the organization, the business, and just how important it is to essentially exploit, negotiate the best deal, but exploit people on the west coast of Africa for their extractive industry, the work that they were doing in oil and gas. And I was like, is everyone else hearing this and no one else is uncomfortable? Okay. I'm extremely uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
would like to get out of here now.
Yeah. So that was a sharp pivot, a
That was
hard,
a very
hard,
sharp pivot right
hard.
back to nonprofit work. So in college, I had been fundraising for my college as a student caller in like early elementary school even. I went to a private school and I was always the student like pulled out of class to help with tours and to give presentations and to talk to prospective
You've been
parents
groomed
and
for
board
this
members.
really your whole life.
Yeah,
You've been,
so that's what I did.
and tell me what happened. I know that recently you had an experience that just was so definitive. Another sharp pivot. So share the story. Tell us, set the stage for us.
You alluded to it in your introduction. I really did reach a breaking point of burnout. So I will just say I've had an amazing fundraising career working for some extraordinary nonprofit organizations. I love the people that I met there. I love the work that all of these organizations are doing.
Mhm.
But the what happened is the environment in which that work is being done and the way in which we go about fundraising has changed significantly. As our economic structure as a country has changed, um, there's significant growth in the wealthy, like that kind of spike of how much wealthier the wealthy are than the middle, if you can even call it a middle class anymore, and those who are poor. Um, Grew immensely during the 20 years that I was fundraising for my professional work. And I went into it more as a give everyone the opportunity to support the organization. Like the more people supporting the work, the better. And it evolved as an industry into let's just woo and court these ultra rich individuals, these ultra high net worth people.
The top
And
1%, right? Like let's
yes,
target them for the
1%
large.
of yeah, 1% of the 1% even. Like
Oh,
just dealing with these ultra wealthy
wow.
individuals and working on a team of fundraisers who were hyper focused on finding, wooing, and receiving donations from that ultra high net worth echelon of
How
our
did that
society.
feel? How did that feel working at that level?
Awful.
I would imagine the pressure is
Yeah,
incredible. And also the demographic doesn't really live in the real world. So
yeah,
I would think finding relatability, because here you are good at your job,
yeah,
but also living in the real world.
yeah,
So that must have been really challenging to kind of bridge the gap and socialize and woo and live this almost alternate lifestyle from the true Helen,
yeah.
in order to bring the donations in. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it got harder and harder and harder. Wait, am I on mute all of a sudden? I feel like I suddenly
No,
got
I can
muted.
hear you
Oh, okay. Oh,
perfectly.
good.
You're fine.
Sorry. Yeah, no,
So
it just
I'm,
got harder and harder. It
yeah.
really did get increasingly difficult and it
What were you
felt
feeling?
more.
What were you feeling inside? Was it just kind of a nudge at first and a little discomfort, and then it was building, or like, how did that present for you?
Um, what was I feeling? It came on slowly. So all my life, whenever I had stress, I would have indigestion, heartburn. That became more chronic, more regular. Um, I would start to get stomach pains. So there was a lot of internal physiological responses to the stress that I was not processing for a
Right.
very long time.
Wow.
That, I mean, I had eczema that like I could not keep under control, like barely could keep it
I
under
mean, all that
control.
energy has to go somewhere, right? That discordant
Hmm.
energy and almost a false front that you have to armor up and present. And then the distance and gap between who you are as an authentic soul and self must have been so wide. And to be in it all day, long days, every day must have impacted you mentally, physically, psychologically in so many
Yeah.
ways. Was it kind of just a gradual breaking down of what felt good to you, including your body?
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing, like no system was really by the time that I reached complete burnout, there was no system that wasn't experiencing some kind of inflammation, maybe is a good way to put it, from the stress that I was not processing and the dissonance between the world that I wanted to be in and help and create and the world that I was living in. Like for a long time, I rationalized the work that I did because I was still doing so much good in the world. I mean, my partner designs games, and there were so many conversations we had where he's like, I just make games for people to have fun. Like, that's a frivolity. Like, my
Yeah,
whole career is a frivolity.
right.
Meanwhile, you're raising, at the
Millions
end of
of
my
dollars.
career, millions of dollars. Yeah, $50 million, more than $50 million for nonprofit organizations that were changing people's lives
Right,
in remarkable ways.
right.
Um, but I couldn't, it stopped feeling like I was really doing that good. Like it wasn't, I don't know. There was just a breaking point. It was very stressful. There was a lot of pressure to constantly do more. Um, and I stopped being able to do as much of the work that I really liked, which was finding a way for everyone to support a valuable mission.
Yeah.
And instead, I was spending a lot more time courting ultra wealthy people and engaging in
I
those
think the
kinds of
energy of that is different.
relationships.
The
Mhm.
energy of that is different. And
Yeah.
clearly you felt that.
Yes. Yeah, no, and I had a really bad hypertension. My cholesterol went up, so my cardiovascular system was not happy. My digestive system was not happy. I
Your
developed
adrenal system was probably shot from being in overdrive all the time. Like, got to get this, got to get this, got to get this. What was the final straw that where you were just like, and I'm out. We're done here.
I yeah, I stopped being able to function at daily tasks, right? So it was getting harder and harder for me to complete my work and to do a good job at work. And I
Mhm.
was managing that okay. I also had the most understanding and generous, graceful, kind group of humans that I was working with in my last position, and I was still struggling. Like in prior positions, there had been people for whom mm, people whose presence was toxic to me.
Right.
maybe maybe they aren't actually toxic people, but like there was not a good synergy in
It was
us
oil
working
and
together.
water, is what you're
Yeah.
saying. It was not
Yes.
working.
But in my last position, I had everyone who was amazing and on board with the work and just the sweetness and kind of, I mean, a CEO who's like all hands messages, I would strip any like proprietary information or whatever out and send to my past coworkers and be like, this is what an awesome CEO should be like.
I think that makes it harder to leave when you have a
It
leader
did.
that is so supportive and so kind, but ultimately at the end of the day, we have to follow our heart
Yes.
because
And
it becomes impossible not to.
yeah, no, my whole life was saying, don't do this. Like everything that I love to do, I couldn't do anymore. I was failing at my job. And they say people don't quit jobs, they quit management. But in this case, I absolutely was quitting a career. And
Right.
I even had this long conversation because at first it was just a hiatus. I was like, I need a mental health break and I need to take, like, I have a doctor and I have a therapist who are both saying you need a sabbatical.
You're fracturing here.
Yes, like
Yeah.
how can I get this sabbatical? And so even though it's a small organization, even though there were no state or federal laws forcing them to
Right back.
comply with my request, they were like, yes, let's figure this out. Like I said, amazing place to work. They figured out a way, and I took a sabbatical, and I with almost zero cut in my compensation. Like
Compensation.
it was a minor cut. It was like a I shouldn't say almost zero. It was like a 20% cut in my compensation, but it certainly was livable. And so yeah, I took those few months. First of all, it took me 3 weeks to actually finish everything that I said I was going to finish before my sabbatical and to actually do it and to turn it in and get it done. So I spent the first 3 weeks of my, 12-week sabbatical or whatever it
You were
was,
still working.
still working. And then I And then I just sort of shut down, right? Like I slept a lot. Like I slept a lot during the day. I still couldn't sleep well at night, but like I was just taking naps all day long.
Right.
Um, and the whole purpose of it was to like find my joy. Like the therapist kept on saying, like, find what is going to be joyful for you. And I was like, I don't think I can do that step yet. I think I have to like heal
Recover.
all of this first.
Right. Right.
like, like I get that that's the assignment. I just don't think I can do it because I could find no joy in anything at that point. Like I was like, there's no point to the world. There's no point to like my existence. Like I was a very, very dark place. And nothing seemed like it would spark joy. Like I think I try to listen to comedy because I was like, oh, that'll make me laugh. It's comedy. And like like I couldn't laugh. Like I just was in a really, really dark place.
You had really gone far beyond your limit.
Yes, I
Sounds like, and
had.
then it's almost like the recovery is just to get you to the baseline.
Yes.
Not
And
even
that,
like move the needle, but just to get back to your baseline
yeah. So
persona.
I had those first 3 weeks of working. I had 4-ish weeks of um resting. And then I started to feel anxiety over having to go back.
Oh my gosh,
And I was
you couldn't
right,
even enjoy the time at all.
right,
Oh
right.
my gosh.
And I was like, and so
Oh,
I had this really frank conversation with my supervisor, and he's like, "Are you coming back? Because like I get it if you're not coming back, but are you coming back?" And I was like, "I literally don't know. I would love to come back to work with you. I love working with you. I know I'm not gonna go take some other fundraising job. Like this isn't just an excuse to
right,
leave your organization and find a better paying job. It was a delightfully I was delightfully well compensated in the position."
right.
Um, and he's like, "Okay, I get it." And so but then like there's that thing where he's my buddy and my friend as a person. Like he's a person that I just really enjoy, but also at that point he was my boss. And so I had to just sort of be like, this is as much as I can say to you right now.
Right.
And he respected that boundary because he's an awesome human being. And when we finally talked about, me coming back to work, I was like, I'm not doing it. I
Right.
can't.
Right.
And he's like, all right, let's just call your last day, the last day of the year. And we'll move forward from there. Like we'll be fine. And you get better and do what you need to do to figure out your next chapter.
How did you
And so that's what
feel?
happened.
How did you feel like actually deciding and then letting go of something that had been such a big part of your life? Did you feel complete? Did you feel anxiety? Like what am I going to do with myself? Where am I going?
I
And what were you
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
going
It
through
was
this
a lot of
transition?
emotions. It was
I
a lot of
bet.
emotions. The very first, obviously, was like money. And at the beginning of taking the sabbatical, we'd done a really hard look at our finances, our savings. Like we knew we weren't going to ever touch our retirement investments, but we had a pretty good set of savings that we could work with to make this healing, this window of healing, the opportunity for healing happen.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
didn't have as much anxiety about finances anymore. I'd kind of figured that part out, but I didn't know who I was or what I was going to do. And
Mhm.
so that decision felt like the one I had to make, but it also felt like the lowest point of being lost. So, like, it was great and scary as heck
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Yeah. There's something so uncomfortable about knowing that you have maybe a purpose and direction that is calling to you, not knowing exactly what it is, how it's going to unfold, when it's going to unfold. It's almost a feeling of being untethered,
Yeah.
excited, and terrified all at once.
Yeah.
Would that be accurate?
That is completely accurate. And I would say it's even like, well, I love what you said about being untethered. Um, because for a while you just latch on to everything that you see, every idea that pops into your head, and you're like, oh, this is it. Oh, this is it. Like, oh, I'm gonna go do this. And so like I had I mean, I still have some of these ideas where I'm like, I guess I'll go work in a grocery store. I like grocery stores. Like, like,
Ends up being a sleepless podcast. So how did you land here from there? How did
yeah.
you
So,
get here?
um, so I still wasn't getting very good sleep, and I was having, I'd had a lot of time during the sabbatical, if you will, to nap and to like get enough hours of sleep, but I still wasn't getting very good sleep and I still was staying up really late. Like I was not wanting to fall asleep. Like I had a lot of anxiety over just letting go of the day and going to sleep.
Hmm,
Like I hadn't done
interesting.
enough. I wasn't enough. There wasn't productivity that I could hold up and say, I did it. I deserve to
I'm
sleep.
going to stop you right there because so much of our worthiness
Mhm,
is defined by accomplishment and
mhm,
ticking boxes and achievement.
mhm.
And when that's removed, it's almost like an existential crisis where you're like, oh my God, who am I? And all those unworthiness little monsters start like surfacing and rising to the top. And you keep trying to push it down and validate your existence. And it just keeps rising to the top. And I've totally been there. And it is
Yeah,
the most uncomfortable experience to get through.
it it's a really important experience to get through
Totally.
though. Like
Totally.
I had to sit with myself
Mhm.
and be calm with myself as a being of existence. When you said it's almost like an existential crisis, I was like, no, it was a complete existential crisis. It absolutely was a crisis. I did not know who I was, what I was, why I was.
Right.
I and it's funny because it was like you said something else. You said like, oh, like you have this other calling. I did not. I just knew I couldn't go any further down this career path that I had set for myself. I'd tried a
Right.
couple different avenues and like I was not able to transition out of the middle of that, like the middle life or whatever, the middle management in that career space
Right.
at all. But I had to leave because it was killing me. I mean, it was killing me. I
It
said that a
was.
lot.
Yeah, it
Um,
was. On
my
a deep
blood pressure.
soul level, not just
Yeah.
physically, but like crushing you on a
Yeah, my blood pressure was at a crisis level. Like I'd gone into I'd made an appointment for myself with a women's health expert and I had very specific things that I wanted to talk to that person about. And this was well before I took my sabbatical. And they took my vitals like they do at every kind of medical appointment that you ever go to, and the nurse practitioner who I was scheduled to meet with and have a long conversation about balancing my hormones with and talking about, my change of life symptomology. And she was like, "We can't talk about any of that." And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean? I have waited a long time for this appointment. Like I'm here, I've taken off work, I've made time for this. Like, what do you mean we can't talk about that?" And she's like, your blood pressure is in what we call a crisis.
Oh my gosh, what in the
And
world?
I was like, explain that to me because, like, yeah, I know I've got some high blood pressure, but whatever, it runs in my family. She's like,
Right.
no, 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 no.
Ooh,
We want your blood pressure to be 120 over 80. Your blood pressure is over 200 over 100.
what? Oh my
And,
gosh.
and I was like, no, 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 no. We'll just take it again. And she's like, no, no, the measurement's correct. You need support on this. This is not my area of expertise, but I refuse to treat you as a patient and try to give you hormonal balance, etc. If your um what do they call that? Your equilibrium is so off balance already. Like you can't like you need to get to a baseline of like normal physiological health before we can start managing
Wow.
anything else.
Wow.
And I really respect that she took the time to say that to me.
Hmm.
It still took me years to figure out that I needed to leave my job. in my career. But she was I had had my blood pressure taken by a lot of professionals, and all of them had just been like, well, it's a little high or it's higher than we'd like.
Mm.
She was the first person who was like, time out. You need to actually address this. So you get people along your way that give you red flags, and then you get people that are like, this is your burning bush. This is
You
this
will
is like
die.
your message from God right
Right.
now.
Right.
You need to hear it.
Right.
And so,
And then
um,
act on it, right? I mean, you said you still took
yeah,
years, so I can imagine that your healing process probably took a really long time, like a
it
year
was
or
it was
two,
like
or
all of last year. Yeah, I would say all of 2023 I dedicated it to the idea of recuperation. Um, Convalescence was a word that I used a lot to talk about my experience, and it sounds like such a like oldie-timey tuberculosis word, but I loved the idea of being able to like have a period of time in which your sole focus and purpose was health, healing, and restoration. Um, and that's what I did. I took that year.
what did you learn about yourself during this year
Yeah,
you
your
took? Tell me what
brain
your
is
takeaways
plastic.
were. Tell me
Your
about that.
your brain is plastic. That was really, really super important for me to understand because in the depths of the darkness of not feeling like there was a purpose to my life or a reason for my being, it was really important for me to remember that that thought process was not always going to be there, that I could change those thoughts. I could find other things to latch onto. The Japanese principle of ikigai, right? Where you're finding your purpose in life and your reason for being, and that will come. That it's okay to be in a period where you're focused on your health and your wellness, and
Mhm.
that you'll get to a place where you'll find your purpose and your desired thing that you want to work on and what you'll be passionate about for you know the foreseeable future, whatever that looks like for you. So the really number one takeaway was, as cliche as it sounds, is it gets better. It gets like you can get out of depression and anxiety. You can I used a lot of yoga. I used a lot of meditation. I used a lot of work on my sleep practices and my sleep hygiene, which is what sort of led me to be like, hey, I didn't learn how to do this. Maybe other people never really did either.
Right, right. So
Um,
how did sleepless formulate and come about for you as a podcast? I mean, this was a
yeah.
very sharp turn from
Yeah.
what you've been doing.
Yeah. I I knew I didn't want to work with people exactly. Like I wanted to help people, but I didn't want to work with people. So a podcast was a really good way to be in like my little booth and not have to deal with people.
Yeah,
Um, but I also wanted this podcast to exist and it didn't. I needed it and it wasn't there. And so I felt like, all right, if this thing that seems like a no-brainer, it's got to exist, doesn't, I can be the one to make it. Like I can do this. I have never had a problem with my voice. A lot of people don't like hearing the sound of their own voice. I've always been like, not only do I like talking a lot and hearing the sound of my own voice in the like idiom sense of the word, like I talk too much, but also I've never really cared about hearing my recorded voice back. It sounds
right,
different, but I'm like, yeah, that's me. Okay.
right.
Um, so I knew I could do the podcast. It didn't exist. I knew I wanted it to exist. And not only did I want it to exist, but even if I was never going to broadcast it, I was going to end up having to make something like it for myself to help myself.
Tell
So
me
I
how you
might
came
as
up
well
with the
make it.
concept. Tell me about the concept of it and how you came up with this, sleepless. Tell us about what that is and how you came up with that.
So it was a process of elimination. I realized I needed new skills for sleep. I like the things that used to work well for me were clearly not working well for me. And you could only spend so many nights in a row up until 3 a.m., napping during the day, realizing that your whole circadian rhythm is off before you're like, all right, let's try this sleep hygiene thing.
Mhm.
You know, and I could do a little bit of the routine stuff, like the pre-sleep get yourself ready stuff that's always recommended.
Mhm.
But once I laid down in bed, I could not stop my brain from keeping me awake. And I could fairly decently interrupt the negative thoughts, but they would still be spiraling thoughts. Like it'd be like, oh, I should do this new plan. I should figure out this new thing that I should do. Oh, I didn't get that done today, so I'll make a list for myself now. And like, I just wouldn't stop.
It couldn't turn off. It was
Right.
eternally a loop
Yeah.
that you couldn't, it's like a ride you couldn't get off, that merry-go-round you
No.
couldn't get off of.
And in my previous happy, able to put myself to sleep, self-soothing days of my teens and my 20s and even my early 30s, I would often count myself to sleep. So like you're counting sheep, but I just count.
Right.
Um, and you know, I would count from one to I never get past 500. Like I just, you know, but it'd always make me go to sleep. It would always be the thing that would slow my mind. And I was like, I just want someone to count to me. And for some reason, my husband did not want to be the person to count from 1 to 500 to me while I was,
Imagine that every night
yeah, trying
for
to
the
go to
rest of his
sleep.
life. For the
Yeah,
rest of his life.
he was like, "No, I pass. That's like
No,
that
thank
is
you.
not it's not something that I'm going to do for you. I love you, but you're going to have to find another
Oh
way."
my gosh.
Um, and so I was like, okay, well, I'll just find a recording of somebody counting from 0 to 500. This must exist because we need to learn how to speak English if we don't speak English as a first language. Numbers are an important thing to figure out. I am certain that someone will have created a list of just saying the numbers, and I'll use that. I'll go search, learning English as a second language, counting 0 to 500. Didn't exist. Helping people fall asleep, 0 to 500. Didn't exist. Sleep, like, and I knew sleep meditations weren't going to work for me because I'd tried them and they'd worked for a while and then they stopped working. I knew white noise, brown noise, green noise, blue noise, yellow noise, pink noise. None of that was going to work for me because I hate that sounds like that staticky, like, no. Mm-mm. I had tried interviews and stories, I was like, because I used to be able to fall asleep to the TV. That stopped, that wasn't working for me. It was all too interesting. It was too much. It was all giving me ideas of what I could do with my life when what I really needed to do was sleep.
Right.
Um, and so I was like, I'm just gonna make this thing. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna record it. And then I sat on that idea for a long time. Like, how am I gonna do this? What tools am I gonna need? What am I gonna do? Like, I tried making it just like on my phone. Um, so I kind of noodled with it for a little while as like I don't know, like you're just trying to put together a kit, like a building Lego kind of thing. I was like, will this go here? No. Does
I
this
was
work this way? No.
I was thinking about you and thinking about the millions of people who need this.
Yeah.
Like, I better get your autograph now before you're the next it podcast. And you're probably building, as we speak, thousands of listeners. And I want to get in early. So I'm going to make sure I get your autograph now, Helen, before you're a
Yeah.
podcast sensation. But I know so many people with sleep issues that will benefit from this.
Yeah, and it just it isn't out there. There's Calm and some other apps that have some cool pieces, but there's all pay to play. And I was at a point in my life where pay to play was not an option. I didn't have a job.
Right.
I wasn't gonna
There's
like
that.
start a whole bunch of new subscriptions to things.
Right.
And it also gave me something to do. So once I started thinking about the numbers thing and we started joking around about like other ideas that we could use and that I could make lists out of, I was like, this could be a thing. Like, it doesn't exist. It could be a thing. And I mean, dream big. I had ideas of like sleep eye masks and sleep lists, like headphones that were specifically designed for sleeping in, and, sweatshirts and pajamas, like all the like sleep stuff. And
Right.
that hasn't happened yet. I haven't done it yet, but who
Well,
knows?
let's
Not to say
say
I
yet.
won't.
Let's say yet.
Yeah.
Because when you're a big sensation, that would be the organic next step, right?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Do something like that.
Anyway, so it was very much out of complete necessity that I created it, and now it's just out of love for doing it. Like, I enjoy sitting down with the microphone and recording these sort of lullabies that are just lists of objects or things or ideas that all fit into nice, neat little category. It's very calming to have it all just kind of be organized and put together in a beautiful list. And then I try to use my best lulling voice, which I've been told is fantastic for the
It's
task.
magical. It's magical
And yeah.
and
And then I
soothing.
put a little bit of music underneath it, and it's real slow. Like, it's real low. It's very like subtle. Put the music underneath it and let people kind of have long pauses of just soothing music, the next item, the next item, the next item until they go to sleep.
I think it's amazing. I think
Yeah.
you're amazing to have come up with this concept. And I know that you're helping a lot of people. And I'll say that it feels good to do something for the love of it.
Yeah.
It's so different from doing something because you have to, or there's this obligation or this hook that is kind of forcing you into it every day, all day.
Yeah. And it's
Different.
fun. It's fun to like, I like taking random dives into strange categories or topics. So, when I was like, hey, are there enough breeds of sheep that I could do a whole episode on just counting sheep? And there are. There's actually more
What?
than what I put in the episode.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it so much. I love it so much. And
Yeah.
I I think it's going to be a tool that people will really benefit from
Yeah,
going
the week that we're
forward.
recording, this week I'm going to put out one that's edible flowers. That's going to be the end of my cooking and food series
Oh,
is
yeah, you could
edible
do whole
flowers.
themes. You could do whole
Mhm.
themes, right? Which is
Yeah.
this is just going to grow and grow. And I know you have a sleep expert that you have on, right?
Yeah, I
Tell me
do a
about that.
live yeah, I do a live chat for about 25 minutes every month with a sleep expert named Barbara Bottolotti. When I was first starting out the podcast, the I don't know, I was like, let me find other sleep people. And and I found a lot of people that were peddling supplements, and I didn't really want to align with them. Not that I don't love supplements, I take supplements. I also take, medicine and medication. Like, I'm not against those things. I just knew that that wasn't my space where I
Right.
wanted to shine. And I found Barbara, and she had just launched a book tour to promote her book about blissful sleep. And it's all about ways, like, non-medication, just natural ways to help you sleep. And she was on this book tour, but she was from Seattle. So I was like, hey, when you get back from your book tour, let's connect. And she was like, I am not waiting to connect with you. You sound amazing. Let's do this right now.
I love it.
So we never met in person, even though we're both in Seattle. And before we made and started doing these monthly Sleeping in Seattle Sisters conversations. And so we pick a topic about sleep support that we want to share with people. And we talk a little bit about our experiences, a little bit of humor, a little bit of wisdom. And we kind of try to combine those things together in a little 20-minute, 25-minute conversation that goes live once a month, and then the recordings are available as well.
That is wonderful. Now, if people want to reach out to you,
Yes.
how would they find you?
Oh gosh. It's easiest to find me on the website for sleeplists.com. It's a pretty basic website, but it has me. There's a giant picture of me in the front of it, so you know you're in the right place.
Yeah.
And especially if you're watching as well as listening to this, you can see my face. You'll know it's me. It's sleeplists.com, and you can click on episodes. I also have a resources page there, and that just keeps on growing. It's when I find articles or people or things that are interesting that I find credible and helpful for sleep, and I put them there. There's even a guide to setting your phone up to help you have better sleep. So,
Wow, that's
yeah,
incredible. I'm
yeah.
definitely sharing your podcast with people in my life, and I
Thank
hope
you.
all our listeners will share this information with people in their lives because really if you think about the ripple effect,
Yeah.
you don't have to um, change the world all at once. But I really feel like the people who need to hear the message find it. And that
Yes.
one person at a time in organic growth is really powerful because the people who are showing up for the show or for you specifically are authentically interested. It's not just a numbers game. So I've always done podcasting because I'm passionate about my messaging and my work, and I want to support humanity as
Yeah.
they navigate challenging times in their life, um, which
And
is opposite from what most people want, right? They want to scale, they want to make it a business, and I'm not opposed to it. I'd love for that too. I would love,
right.
but the real driving factor for me is my passion and my purpose, and I can feel that authenticity in you as well.
I want people to know that there are tools to help them out there. They do not have to rely exclusively on sleeping pills, which I tried. They make me too groggy. I live in a state where you can get cannabis. That was not working for me either. It had other, and it has long-term bad side effects to use it as sleep anyway, as a
Right.
sleep aid anyway. But you can I just want people to be able to find new tools for their sleep toolbox that can help them have better sleep hygiene and know that the podcast can work for you. And if it is a tool that works for you, put it in your toolbox. Like, I by no means want to be the only thing that you rely on, but I'd
Right.
love to be a tool that can help you when it's appropriate, when it's the right tool for that point in your time in life. And I just want everyone to get as much good, healthy sleep as they possibly can. It has changed my life. It's been an absolute essential part of me coming out of anxiety and depression. It's been an absolutely essential part of me healing my digestive system, healing my circulatory system. It's been so life-changing to have quality, restful sleep consistently that I just want that for everyone because I am a better human to other humans when I have enough sleep.
Right.
Like, we're
Your
all
husband
better.
must be so happy. Your husband must be so grateful that you hit that sweet spot where you actually have a
Mhm.
normal sleep cycle. You can function, during the day and not have everything backwards and
We can sleep together again.
well, that too. That's huge. That's a game
Like,
changer.
that's lovely. And
Yeah.
we generally enjoyed that quite a bit, and it
Yeah.
was, no
How
longer available to
how
us
long has it
for a while.
been since you've been getting, regular sleep and feeling pretty good?
6 to 9 months, I'd say. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. Um,
Do you
and
feel you
it's
have more clarity in your
yeah.
life because your brain isn't fuzzy and exhausted and obsessed with
Yeah.
sleep?
I also feel like I have clear expectations of myself, right? So I know what I want to avoid doing, like what are the behaviors that I don't want to do. And I know better now what are the things that I do want to do. So I don't want to doom scroll, but am I a horrible person if I get like sucked in by social media? No, like an entire system, hundreds of thousands of people are working regularly to keep me sucked in there. Like,
Right.
I'm not a bad person. I'm not a terrible human because I doom scroll sometimes, but I do know that I can stop. Like, I
Right.
know that I can stop, that's not where my best dopamine hits come from. I know that better dopamine hits come from finishing a podcast episode, having conversations with people like you, going outside and breathing fresh air. These things help better. They help better. They're a better tool. So for me, the entire journey has been about finding new and better tools to help me get my life into a balance that is sustainable for me. I want to live a really long time. And for my family, I want them to be around me for a really long time.
Tell me what your biggest takeaway was from this healing journey to this point.
To this point
What did
so
you
far,
learn about
yeah,
yourself during this
yeah.
process?
I really like helping people, which I knew about myself, but I wasn't sure if I had developed that as an affectation of my career journey or if it was authentic to who I was. And
Mhm,
so I learned that I really do like to help people, that's a valuable thing to me, that I like improving the world kind of one individual at a time or having that impact.
mhm,
Um, and connecting people. So I still love networking and finding new connections between people. I found that also I'm a generally happy person. For a really long time I wasn't, and so it was really nice to kind of come back to finding that, like, I'm just a kind of silly, fun human. Like, I like to be, playful and joyful, and that's not about, like, for a long time I was looking for my joy as a thing. Like, I will find my new passion and that's my joy.
mhm,
And instead, I really woke up to the idea of, like, it's what you make of every moment. And
mhm.
so if I want to be joyful in this moment and be a little playful and sing a little song to myself while I'm making breakfast for my kiddo, I am going to do that. And it's fun. And that's who I am.
Right.
And it's been really fun to see because, like, when you're feeling it and you're just working from your own feelings, you don't necessarily notice that things have changed because you were working from your negative feelings and now you're working from more positive feelings, but you're still working from your feelings and going through life being the you that you are. But when you bump into your loved ones and they look at you with a whole new light on their face, or like you see that light on their face that you saw, when they're falling in love with you again, or being like, or my daughter is a tween. So actually, what gives me joy is anytime I can embarrass her just a little bit, because like she's so easily embarrassed. Oh, mom. And I'm like, hey, yeah.
I love it. I love
So yeah, I mean, they seem really small. It's funny when you ask, like, what's the biggest thing? And sometimes it's just realizing how much control you have over things if you just change your own perspective on them. Like, that's the thing that you really have the most control over, is living for yourself, not other people's ideas and expectations, not anyone else's idea of what success is. Not even thinking about what the idea of success is, because that's a
it.
dangerous path.
Right?
But just, yeah. And of course, that sleep is important. Like, I have definitely gone from being the type of person who says things like, I don't need sleep, I'll sleep when I die, to the type of person who's like, I get to spend a third of my life sleeping, and I am going to make that the most productive third of my life. It is going to fuel my body, it is going to build my neural pathways, it's going to make me a stronger, healthier, happy human being. And it's a task as important, if not more important, than having a healthy diet and exercising on a regular basis.
Mhm. And I think people have it opposite, right? Sleep is such an afterthought or not even on the radar. They don't even include it as a baseline practice.
Yeah.
It's the one thing people sacrifice, compromise
Hmm.
on, and push through. So to come to a healthy relationship and understanding of how critical sleep is, just as critical as hydration and nutrition, and how it impacts your daily life and mental health,
Hmm.
is a really powerful thing.
Hmm.
And it must have been such a game changer for you to get
Yeah.
yourself back, for your family too,
Yeah.
because you're only as good at giving as your tank is full. So when we're running on empty, when we have given and given and given without replenishing the well and filling our cup, so to speak, obviously we're not at our best. There's
I
we're
had no patience.
there's more resentment, there's more anger,
Mhm.
there's more irritation. You can feel the difference in your body. And even if you're not conscious, the feelings and awareness are there.
Mhm.
Um, and you're just not as nice a person, let's face
Mhm.
it. And so God bless the family members that have endured that phase of our lives and stuck around.
Oh
You
yeah,
made
no,
it through it all.
my daughter is brutally honest because she's a tween. So she's brutally honest. And so she was like, I've noticed lately, Mama, that you're snapping a lot. Are you sure you're okay? She
Oh,
would say
she's
things like
calling
that.
you out,
Yes.
calling
And
you out.
so, but then the really fun part is, fast forward to a few, months of better sleep, and she's looking at me and saying things like, "Oh, you seem like you're having a lot of fun today," or like, "This is going to be a great, we get to do this thing together, and it's going to be like I'm not worried about it. I know you're going to be patient with me."
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That must feel really good.
Yeah. So, I mean, she's brutally honest. It's like it feels terrible. It's like a stab to my mother's heart where I'm like, oh, I feel so guilty about having been so bad before. But I do feel really good about being a better presence now in her life.
I
So,
think it's never too late.
yeah,
And I think there's a power in our children watching us heal ourselves,
that
um,
is my
and
hope.
watching us navigate the journey and seeing the transformation. Even if they're not speaking it, they're seeing the change in you with every interaction. I have
Mhm.
grown children, they're 31 and 30, which I
Mm.
still can't believe because that's how old I feel. And I'm obviously way older than that. But
They age, you don't. That's how it
exactly, I'm
works.
reverse aging. We're going to meet in the middle some
Hmm.
point. But I really feel there's also a power in transparency and our kids actually seeing the real us, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and not
Hmm.
being inauthentic. I think there are people who fake it, fake joy. They're always positive. Everything's great. Everything is sunshine, unicorns, and rainbows. And I'm like, you are so avoidant of pain. You are so avoidant and obnoxious with this exuberant positivity that you are not willing to look at your feelings and feel your feelings and work through your shit like the rest of us. You're not helping the world with this artificial sunshine. It
No.
doesn't
And then
feel
you make
authentic.
other people think that that is how they have to be in the
Right.
universe. I
Right.
mean, it's particularly young people, right? So whether you're saying that you've got all the answers figured out or you're trying to say that that everybody needs to be positive or just work harder or do like all of that is so bad for impressionable people
Yeah.
because it is such an unrealistic expectation.
And
We
you've lived
need,
it. You
yeah,
have
we need
lived it.
downtime. We
Yeah.
need downtime. We
Right.
need to feel our deep feelings and our negative feelings. We need to be presented with challenges so that we learn how to grow and we learn how to adapt and change. That's how we become better versions of ourselves. It's how you level up in life. So you have to have challenges. And so, yeah, sometimes when you're going through them, they suck.
And
Duh.
that's what it is. I've
Yeah.
also found that I've refrained how I perceive success
Hmm.
because I was very type A, perfectionist, achievement oriented, like not didn't do vulnerability, didn't want to look at anything that would diminish my status or how people perceive me. I went through all of that and it was just all false. Like none of that mattered.
It's exhausting too.
It's
It's so exhausting
exhausting. And you do it with
because
a smile and you make it look easy, and people are like, wow, she has got it together. And I was like dying inside, trying to keep that facade alive and critical of myself for not being enough and not doing enough and not achieving enough. And it was such a gift to finally to get to this place of acceptance of who I am and being so comfortable with who I am and allowing people to have a negative opinion or judgment and not take it. And I'm like, I reject that. You can think that all day long, but that's not who I am. And I'm going to continue on my path regardless of the judgment, the negativity, the projections of your wounds on me. Straight up reject it. I'm doing me, and I have to be true to myself always. And I let go of the need to fit in a box to please everyone at my expense. I gave that up, and it has been liberating ever since, you know?
And energizing. Like it's exhausting to frame yourself or put the facade on, like you were saying,
Mhm.
to please everyone else. And you have nothing left that's satisfying yourself about yourself. And so it's super exhausting. And then when you flip that and you get your energy from who you are and you say to yourself, my success is me being healthy and happy and alive and well and doing positive things in incremental spurts that I can manage and being sustainable. Like when you change your perspective and say that's what success is. Success is what for me it was saying success is what I want for my kid. So like I don't want her to be rich. I don't want her to be on Forbes, 500 list or whatever. I want her to be healthy and happy and capable of receiving and giving love. I want her to
Yes.
be well-rounded and willing to explore and open to challenges. That's what I want for her. And when I started saying, well, then I should want that for me too.
You should model that, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge, huge thing. And another thing that I realized was when I was living as that old version of me, that's what I was teaching my kids,
Yep.
held value and
Hmm.
defined who they were. And since I've been on this path of healing myself and rediscovery of who I truly am and living from my soul, I have been so intentional every day of loving them for who they are, whether they're at the top of their game or in the gutter. I don't care.
Yeah.
If you are being authentically you, that's what matters to me. And
Yeah.
not defining them by their, hitting these success markers that society programs. There's so much pressure on kids today and young adults that these kids shut down.
Hmm.
They tap out, they're depressed, they're anxious, they're losing sleep, they're not happy, they're looking for meaning and they can't find it because they keep attaching their well-being and their value and worth to the external world instead of deep diving and going, wow, what are my gifts and what really lights me up and how can I find more ways to bring my talent and gifts to the world instead of
Yeah.
get that desk job and get my medical benefits because that makes my mom feel comfortable.
Right.
And my
Well,
dad, you know.
right. Right. Get my law degree, paying out my shingle, get a medical degree, even though I'm going
Ex-
into a huge amount of
ex-
debts. Yeah. Yep. 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 Yeah.
It's okay if that's your passion. Like there are people that are born to do that, and that's your role, and you're going to be a change maker in that industry. Maybe you're going to change politics. Maybe you're going to change the way the legal system works, or an educator, or whatever. Maybe that's your role, and that's different. It's
Doing
different.
it for other people versus doing it for yourself, right? Like, and you're even when you're going into like a medical profession or a legal profession where you will have clients and patients that you will help, you're doing it for other people in that sense. But the
Mhm.
reason why you're choosing that path is yours.
100%.
And that's what I think I've really tried to instill with my kiddo. It's like the reason why you're choosing the path has to be yours. It has to be you driven, not anyone else driven. Even if I don't get it, you still have to like go and do it.
Right. And
And
I
I'll
think,
try to be supportive because like
right.
I want to be a good parent. But even if like for some reason I fall down and fail on that because I have my own hangups, like you still have to go and do your thing
Right.
and live
It's
your life.
important for us as parents to give our kids permission to be themselves and
Yeah.
love them, no matter what, no matter what, even if they are not conforming, especially if they're not conforming with the parameters and norms placed on them by society, by their traditional school expectations.
Mm-hmm.
We're not all meant to be cookie cutter. We're all here as individuals. We all have individual roles to play, gifts to bring, service, that comes from
Yes.
the heart. And if we could become a more love-based culture and live from our heart and honor that and support it, gosh, the world would be a better place. We're just out of time, but I'd love to ask you one
Yes.
last thing, and
Yeah.
that would be what would be a couple words of advice for people who are kind of going through mental health struggles and in depression and anxiety? You've clearly navigated your
Yeah.
way through.
Um, what is most important, I think, is that you do everything you can to not isolate, which is really hard because the thoughts of depression and anxiety force people to isolate. And so reach out to someone, say hello, and if that person isn't available to you at that moment, it doesn't like you got to try the next person. You've got to find people, somebody to just be with and be in communication with. And you'll grow your circle, but that for me anyway, the more insular I got, the more terrible it got. And the
Right,
pandemic did not help with that, obviously.
right,
But
right.
but it was a really big step for me. An amazing friend who was just like, you need to work on this whole health journey for yourself because I want you to be here. Like, I don't even care if I don't get to see you that often. I want you to be here.
Just to hear those
Like,
words must have been
yeah,
so powerful to you. That's
yeah.
a true friend.
And exactly, like, for me, that was really important. So, find that person who wants you to be there, and then know that there's always somebody out there that wants you to be there and to stay there and to live and to be you just because they like you
Hmm.
as the person that you are. So, for me, that was the biggest thing. Sleep helps a lot, though, man. When you're trying to change your thought process and all of your thoughts are negative, getting a good night's sleep is a brilliant way to be able to use new tools effectively to counterbalance that. So that's yeah, those are my two big things is it's okay to sleep and it's better to be here than not be here.
Words of wisdom
Yeah.
from Helen Cernit. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Honor and beautiful conversation as I knew it would be. And to my audience, thank you all for tuning in, for supporting the podcast. Please share, subscribe, like, spread the love. Take care of yourselves. I love you all. I'll see you next time. Bye.